The vicious attack on the Basque town of Guernica heralded the dawn of a new era in warfare, one in which the annihilation of innocence and humanity would become a common theme. The residents vividly recall the town engulfed in a bright day-like light, even as the sun sank over the horizon. High above, the German pilots of the feared Condor Legion adorned the heavens with fiery streaks, raining destruction upon the vulnerable settlement below. Caught in a nightmarish vortex of fire and despair, the civilians on the ground experienced the most harrowing moments of their lives. Meanwhile, their tormentors capitalized on the opportunity to refine the techniques that would eventually transform the Luftwaffe into an unstoppable force. The Bombing of Guernica transcended its role as a mere harbinger of World War II. It served as the crucible in which the world's most ruthless and formidable air force was forged. Operation Magic Fire. When the first shots of the Spanish Civil War resounded over the land in 1936, Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini had already cemented their fascist rule over their own nations. Germany was assembling its might for what would become the worst conflict in human history. Seeing nationalist leader Generalissimo Francisco Franco as a potential ally in the New World Order he wished to establish, Hitler immediately became a crucial supporter of his war efforts. Additionally, Germany was revolutionizing warfare technology and tactics, and the Führer saw the conflict in Spain as a perfect way to test his forces and novel weapons in a predictable stage. From the moment the war was initiated, German and Italian aircraft were sent to aid Franco. Created just 1 year before, in 1935, the German Luftwaffe was already shaping up to be one of, if not the most, powerful and modern air fighting forces in the world. Under the leadership of Hermann Göring, and benefited from Germany's extensive rearmament program in the 1930s, the Luftwaffe had developed advanced aircraft by the time the Spanish Civil War broke out, including the Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighter and the Henkel He-111 bomber. In contrast, the Spanish air forces were blatantly obsolete. Göring would orchestrate a weeks-long mission to use over 25 German Junkers Ju-52 transport warplanes to create a persistent transportation link between Morocco and Spain. The event would be known as the Spanish Corridor. For the Germans, it was called Operation Magic Fire, which referred to the last stage of the opera play that had led to the meeting with Franco's officials. Rise of the Condor Legion. Hitler was not the only one interested in shaping the future of Europe to his will. As Franco's Army of Africa commenced its merciless onslaught across mainland Spain, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin resolved to intervene on behalf of the beleaguered Republican side, which enjoyed fervent support from Spanish communist factions. As such, the Soviet Expeditionary Air Corps became the first modern combat aviation force to see action in Spain. Besides Operation Magic Fire, the new ambitious tactics developed by German commanders were first tested in Spain, and the results would make the foundation for Hitler's blitzkrieg tactics at the onset of World War II. However, Franco's forces would require more than mere strategic support. Spain's pre-war air force was woefully small and technologically outdated, a situation exacerbated by the fact that roughly half the Spanish warplanes had remained under Republican control as the Civil War erupted. Meanwhile, France and Britain, having thus far only provided the Republican side with limited support in the form of supplies and weaponry, opted for a non-interventionist stance. Fearful that their direct involvement would ignite a war with Germany, their hesitance inadvertently emboldened Hitler. Enraged, the Germans resolved to establish a formidable air force to serve under Franco, the elite Condor Legion. Commanded initially by German General Hugo Sperre and later by Wolfram von Richthofen, the Legion was primarily composed of Air Force personnel, including pilots, ground crew, technicians, and smaller contingent Army personnel, such as artillery specialists and tank crews. Under a cloak of secrecy, seasoned German pilots were assembled and dispatched to Spain. Often, these airmen were kept in the dark regarding their destination and purpose. They were then led to believe their mission was limited to training Spanish pilots rather than engaging in combat. However, as soon as the force was amassed, they were hurled headlong into the maelstrom of the Civil War. Along with the Italian air forces, the Germans would then refine their air combat prowess against Spanish Republican and Soviet pilots in a brutal series of aerial clashes. Franco's war had started with an overwhelming triumph, with his forces taking vast territories across Spain in mere weeks. But then the war came to a deadlock, especially around Madrid, the city the rebel leader could not subdue, even after launching dozens of attacks. As such, Franco decided to change tactics and attack the Basque country in the north of Spain, which was seen as a much more vulnerable zone. The Basques were not ready to wage a defensive war. They'd barely been involved in the conflict, and were mostly conservative religious people who had only decided to join the Republican side to get complete autonomy. However, Franco was frustrated that a traditionally Catholic region was against him. As his troops marched into the north of Spain, Condor Legion was dispatched to unleash a devastating attack upon the Basque country and its capital, Bilbao. The perfect target was the small town of Guernica, which sat at the crossroads of all major roads supplying the front lines, while also being on Franco's path to Bilbao. If the city was razed from the map, the front lines would have nowhere to withdraw, and the Basque capital would be open for an attack. It's widely argued that in 1937, the Luftwaffe's operations mainly centered around an alleged doctrine of terror bombing. This strategy purportedly involved the deliberate targeting of civilians, intending to break their will or hasten the collapse of an adversary. Under such a sinister perspective, the Condor Legion was deployed on Monday, April 26th, to rain fire over Guernica. It was market day in the mostly rural settlement, and hundreds of people crowded the streets as they sought to sell their farming produce or buy groceries. The Luftwaffe's playground. The Condor Legion was supported by the Italian Legionary Air Force in a show of force that far exceeded the possible resistance the small rural town could offer. With no Soviet air assistance in the region, Guernica lay defenseless before the might of the fascist forces. Seizing the perfect opportunity to hone their bombing tactics, the attackers launched their first terrifying wave of devastation upon Guernica at approximately 4:30 p.m. A Dornier Do-17 bomber, appearing ominously from the south, rained down 12 50-kilogram bombs, while 3 Italian SM-79 medium bombers took off from Soria with orders to bomb the road and bridge to the east of Guernica, thus blocking the expected enemy retreat. On the ground, the initial strikes served as a desperate warning to the terrified residents. 14-year-old Luis Iriondo, a local bank messenger, heard the chilling church bells and witnessed frantic soldiers waving red flags as the first bombs exploded around him. Months of war and the town's proximity to the front line had desensitized the residents to the constant alarms. As such, only some people ran to the bomb shelters. Iriondo, urged by a frightened foreigner, guided the man to a nearby bomb shelter. Minutes later, the bank where he worked was obliterated, claiming the lives of everyone inside. For 3 grueling hours, Guernica endured the merciless bombardment of the Condor Legion. The Luftwaffe airmen first obliterated the roads, bridges, and escape routes before focusing on the civilian structures. The relentless destruction reached its zenith around 6 p.m. with the Hinkel HE-111, escorted by 5 Regia Aeronautica Fiat CR-32 fighters led by Capitano Corrado Ricci, dropping a series of incendiary bombs that turned the town into a blazing inferno. The 1st and 2nd squadrons of the Condor Legion took off at approximately 4:30 p.m., with the 3rd squadron departing from Burgos minutes later. Escorted by Fiat fighters and Messerschmitt Bf-109Bs, a total of 29 warplanes intensified the assault. From 6:30 to 6:45 p.m., the 3 bomber squadrons attacked in a formation of 3 Ju-52s abreast, an attacking front spanning approximately 490 feet. Simultaneously, and for about 15 minutes after the bombing wave, the Bf-109B and Hinkel HE-51 biplanes strafed the remaining roads leading out of the town, ensuring that the civilian casualties would continue to mount. Finally, at 7:30 p.m., the attack stopped. The Luftwaffe had just shown the world what was to come. Aftermath. The ruthless bombing of Guernica marked a grim turning point in the geopolitical landscape, a chilling demonstration of the devastating power of modern warfare and the threat of fascism. The assault proved to be a pivotal triumph for Franco, who, bolstered by Germany and Italy's support, would soon vanquish the Republican resistance and impose a fascist regime in Spain. This oppressive rule would persist for 36 years, enduring until the day of his demise. The devastation and chaos unleashed upon Guernica were of such magnitude that assessing the true extent of the damage became nearly impossible. Estimates of casualties range from 150 to as high as 1,650, with recent revisions leaning towards the more significant figure. As news of the atrocity spread like wildfire, the bombing became the most infamous incident of the Spanish Civil War, inciting international condemnation against the fascist powers responsible for the carnage. Pablo Picasso, the renowned artist, was deeply moved by the news of the tragedy and began working on the monumental mural-sized painting called Guernica soon after the bombing. He completed it in June 1937, and it's become one of the most influential pieces of art of the 20th century. Moreover, the attack exposed the chilling potential of Hitler's modern military machine, making it abundantly clear that confronting Nazi Germany would be daunting for European democracies for years to come. Paradoxically, many historians argue that the sheer terror wrought upon Guernica did not unite democracies against fascism. Instead, it instilled a deep-rooted hesitancy to confront such a formidable adversary. This trepidation enabled Hitler to expand his empire with minimal resistance in the subsequent years, setting the stage for the cataclysmic global conflict that would soon engulf humanity. Thank you for watching our Dark Docs video. Don't hesitate to subscribe to our channel for more of history's greatest battles, and be sure to check out the rest of our Dark Documentaries channels for many more epic true stories from the World Wars and the impressive military equipment behind them. Also, please leave us a like and activate the notifications bell to be the first to know about our new content. Stay tuned.